Coming up on the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast, a new potential link between lung cancer and pulmonary sarcoidosis. And I've hit another rough patch after surgery for rupturing my Achilles.
This is the Sarc Fighter podcast, living with sarcoidosis and other rare diseases. Here's your host, John Carlin.
Hello, this is episode 153 of the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast. I'm your host, John Carlin. Good to be talking to you today, which happens to be December 18th of 2025. Happy holidays, everybody. As I revealed in the previous podcast, I ruptured my Achilles tendon playing pickleball. And since that time, it has been a lot. When you have a ruptured Achilles, you don't automatically need surgery. All right, you can just let it go and do the rest and put yourself in a boot and not put any weight on it and follow all the doctor's protocols. And in many cases, it will heal on its own over a similar period as to whether or not you have surgery. So let's say it takes 6 months with surgery, takes 6 months without surgery. The question then becomes, well, do you have the surgery? And it depends upon a bunch of different stuff. First of all, it depends upon where the tendon actually ruptures, right? If it's down closer to the ground, like around the area of your ankle, that's where it typically happens. I've learned a lot about this. A lot of stuff I wish I didn't need to know. But that's where it more typically happens. But that tendon basically goes from your heel up into your calf muscle, and eventually the tendon transitions from a tendon-type material into more muscle, right? And so I talked to a couple of different doctors about this. And what you want is a good place to do surgery is whenever you can basically sew one piece of tendon back to another piece of tendon, because tendon is strong and it takes really well to the surgery. What doesn't work so well is when you have the tear closer to the muscle itself and you're trying to suture back together tendon on one side and muscle on the other, because that tends to pull apart. So that's not a good candidate. And initially it looked like I was going to be a not a good candidate, but the MRI was not definitive with the doctor friend that I showed it to. So I called back the doctor, the surgeon that was proposing the surgery, and he said, well, where you are somewhere in the middle. You have a complete tear, and it is a tendon to tendon fix, which is good. It's not as low as we typically see it, but it is not all the way up at the muscle. So then you go over all the different risks associated with surgery, with the anesthesia, with the risk of infection, which is probably the greatest risk, and then we talked about recovery time. And I decided to go for the surgery. And so I did. As you might expect, there's a lot of pain associated with it. And with that came some oxycodone for several days. And I'm not a fan of any drug in that realm. But it did work. I will say that. I was beyond over-the-counter painkillers for several days there. And I had to keep the foot elevated and yada, yada, yada. And so as I'm speaking to you today, it's been exactly a week since the surgery. And so I want to tell you, I did not feel as if I should even attempt a podcast while taking the painkillers. So I'm a bit late with this podcast. And you're taking the painkillers, and I'm sitting in basically a recliner. We have a couch that reclines on two sides. Never thought I'd have one of those, but man, it really, really is comfortable. So the dog chewed up my old kind of stuffy, snooty couch, and since we continue to have dogs, we decided to buy couches at the outlet store that were essentially disposable, which we did, and this one happened to come with a recliner. And boy, that's the perfect thing for putting your foot up and watching television. And if the dog chews it up, then we'll put it on the curb and we'll get another one. But so far, everything's been great with the dogs. And in fact, the couch has turned out to be quite nice. Didn't mean to go off on such a tangent about my couch. But the point is that, the point is that when you're on those painkillers and you're sitting on the couch, you don't know how out of it you are. But looking back at kind of my brain activity during that time, I'm glad I didn't do a podcast. So I'm a bit late with this one, and that kind of made me curious. I don't know if any of you notice when it's late, but after a career in television news, for me, where everything is deadline every single day, whether you're working on a story and you have to get it written and edited and all of that and get it into the newscast, or whether you're just working on the newscast itself and everything, the newscast goes on at 5 o'clock, and so everything has to be ready by, say, 4:45, and you got to be in place, and the director has to do whatever the director has to do to make sure that the show is going to go on, and so you got to be in place, and all those things have to happen, right? Deadline, 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 deadline. So I take my mantra to post every other Monday very seriously, even though it's a self-imposed deadline. So I would just like to know if you notice, if you look forward to that next release, if you look forward to seeing it come into your phone on that every other Monday, or, like I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I just I notice when I get a notification that the new one's there, and I listen to it. And there is one that comes out every Tuesday, and it's about sports cars. But I really, really do look forward to Tuesdays when the Everyday Driver guys release their podcasts. Now, anyway, let me know though. Just let me know if I'm killing myself, because it drives my wife nuts. She'll say, "Well, let's go do this." I say, "No, I have to do the podcast." She's like, "Nobody's gonna notice if you don't do it on a Monday." And I said, "Well, a deadline is a deadline." So anyhow, got off on another tangent there, but I want to know what you guys are thinking. Okay. I now believe that I am thinking clearly. I'm home. I've got my crutches. I haven't left the house in a week. And so in the meantime, I mentioned the couch, and my sons have turned me on to watching the F1 Formula One series on Netflix, Drive to Survive. And I am hooked on it. I bought into all the drama behind the scenes with the drivers, the owners. Netflix had access to everybody. So you're watching these races unfold through the eyes of all the key players on all the opposing teams, listening to the drivers in the cockpit. It's super well done, and they're in Azerbaijan, and they're in Monte Carlo, and the money is just nuts, and it really is a spectacle. And you listen to these guys, and you've got pretty much like 3 teams or 4 teams every year that maybe could be what you call on the podium, first, second, and third. But the amazing amount of effort that some of these teams put into, we were 5th last year, we want to be 4th this year. Like, for them, the big win is 4th. They want to move up 1. And they're moving up against these monoliths like Ferrari and Mercedes and Red Bull and, these teams that are just so good and have so much money and so much history and put so much into the sport, and they have all the best drivers. And yet they have found a way to make you really be pulling for the guy who's going to come in 4th. And that's really good writing, producing, editing, all the things, and all the color, and all the commentary, and all the grit, and all the petty backfighting. It's pretty interesting. So anyway, I say to you, if you are laid up because of Sarc or because of the weather, because it's winter, give it a look, and then reach out to me, and let's see if maybe we have the same favorite driver. And maybe you're already hooked on F1. I want to hear from you. It is the end of the year, and I hope you will join me in making a donation to the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research this year. organization is constantly creating new spaces where the disease is being discussed, studied, you name it. And the fact is that FSR is making so much progress in helping people who are in the midst of their struggle, while also supporting researchers who are at the cutting edge of finding a cure for the disease, or at least maybe some solid treatments. And this is the time of year that most people give, so I hope you will consider a gift to FSR. And I will put a link in the show notes, but please join me in doing that. I will be making my gift this week. All right, the Biomarker Summit. I reported to you earlier this year about my time when I went to Chicago. We had the FSR Gala, and then we had a board meeting, an in-person board meeting. But I've been remiss in not sharing more about something called the Biomarker Summit that was held the next day. And I did not have the opportunity to attend that. I had to leave Chicago earlier. I had a prior commitment at home to be the MC for a big gala that I had committed to months in advance. So I did not attend the Biomarker Summit. And I've heard a lot of buzz in the background just because I'm on the board now and I'm in the certainly in the sarcoidosis space. But FSR really is getting some big kudos for this thing. And the easiest way for me to tell you about it is to sort of paraphrase my way through the news release, which reads as follows. The Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research brought together more than 40 leading clinicians and researchers from around the world for two landmark events. This is two events, really. The inaugural in-person clinician meeting of the FSR Global Sarcoidosis Clinic Alliance, and also the FSR Sarcoidosis Biomarker Summit. And together these gatherings marked a pivotal step forward in global collaboration to improve sarcoidosis diagnosis, treatment, and patient outcomes. I'm going to read you a quote. This is from Elliot Krauser of Ohio State University. The Global Sarcoidosis Clinic Alliance assembled multiple researchers, diverse healthcare professionals, and patient advocates to exchange ideas. The vigorous engagement of its members was inspirational and will no doubt lead to improved clinical care and outcomes. And, of course, Dr. Krauser is very, very highly thought of in the sarcoidosis space. And so then the FSR Biomarker Summit followed the GSCA meeting, and there were 34 participants representing 27 institutions looking at the evolving landscape of biomarker research in sarcoidosis. Now, the event featured a keynote address from Dr. Frida Lewis Hall, MD, DF, APA, MFPM, and former Chief Medical Officer and Executive Vice President at Pfizer. And Frida highlighted the importance of patient-centered perspectives in drug development and precision medicine. And she said the key question for this room is how do we make all the data that we're gathering meaningful, not just for 20 of the patients or 100 of the patients, but for all patients we want to serve. And so what happened was throughout the day, participants looked at gaps and challenges in the current biomarker development, and they talked about strategies to translate lessons from related diseases. And they found a consensus, and it emerged around the need for a balanced roadmap that supports both organ-specific and phenotype-based markers to capture the full heterogeneity of sarcoidosis. So, and I'm not going to dive into all of that because I'm not qualified, but the fact that they reached a consensus, and all these people are people who do understand this and speak this language, are talking about sarcoidosis, and so they all got together and they came out with some sort of common vision, right? So FSR, this continues, is compiling key insights from both meetings, and they'll be publishing white papers summarizing the findings and recommendations for broader distribution. FSR is planning to follow up with workshops in 2026 and launching virtual biomarker working groups to formalize a strategic roadmap for future research. And then another quote, these meetings were more than just a milestone. They were a turning point, said Mary McGowan, president and CEO of FSR, who continues, the collaboration, passion, and shared expertise in the room will directly translate into better tools, resources, and outcomes for patients around the world. The insights gathered here are laying the groundwork for the next phase of FSR's global impact. So that's the end of the news release. And again, I paraphrased my way through it for the most part. But when I say there's reason for hope out there, and I look at this podcast as providing hope and context for everybody in the sarcoidosis space. So when I say there's hope, look, when the former chief medical officer of Pfizer is talking about sarcoidosis, that's a win, right? That's a win. All of these rare or orphan diseases are out there fighting to be recognized. They're seeking attention for their cause. They're seeking researchers to be interested in their cause. And for a long time, and I just got a glimpse of this when I first was diagnosed and I first started doing some volunteering for FSR back in the day, even pre-podcast, I kind of felt like sarcoidosis had a voice, but it was a little bit lost in the wilderness. And I don't feel like that anymore. I'm more tuned in. Yeah, I've got much more of a look behind the scenes, but I like what I see. So, because here we are, and we've got the former chief medical officer of Pfizer looking at us and talking about us and participating in our conferences. We're being noticed. And that alone, I think, is a reason for hope. Now, there's one more reason for hope that I want to share with you. And this is a new study from India that showed some crossover between pulmonary sarcoidosis and lung cancer. And I think this is really interesting. Andrea Lobo, PhD, writes in Sarcoidosis News that researchers have identified 12 genes linked to chronic inflammation, immune dysregulation, and lung scarring that appeared to be shared across both sarcoidosis and lung cancer. These genes were also tied to the WNT signaling pathway, which is a system that helps regulate immune response and cell growth. Based on these findings, the diabetes medication Metformin emerged as a potential new drug candidate for both conditions. This, quote, provides an innovative drug repositioning strategy bridging genetic insights with treatment opportunities, according to the researchers. The findings were described in a study which was published in Hereditas. And using a large gene activity database, the team searched for genes that were differentially activated in sarcoidosis and in lung adenocarcinoma, which is a type of lung cancer often linked to granulomas-related diseases. And overall, the researchers found 120 genes with distinct levels of activity in sarcoidosis compared to healthy individuals, and more than 1,200 differentially activated genes between tumor and non-tumor regions of people with lung adenocarcinoma. That's a lot of numbers to take in, but at the end of the day, according to the researchers, in total, 12 genes showed different activity levels in both conditions when compared with the control samples. And the researchers then worked to identify therapies that could target the 12 shared genes found in both sarcoidosis and lung cancer, and their analysis points to this drug, Metformin, which is a medication approved right now to control high blood sugar levels in people with type 2 diabetes, as the most promising candidate. So this is John just riffing right here, okay? I'm going to get away from this report for just a second. So, of course, there's not been a drug developed specifically for sarcoidosis in the past, I don't know, it's a great amount of time, 5 decades, 6 decades. I've quoted it several times. I don't have it in front of me. Long time. And there's a lot of promising drugs out there that people are working on. But most of the drugs that we all take to try and control our conditions are drugs that come from other diseases, right? Methotrexate, you name it. All the drugs down the line. I'm sorry, I thought I'd be able to ramble a list right off the top of my head. It's not coming to me. let's blame my leg. But the fact is now we're looking in the type 2 diabetes space at this drug called Metformin, and they're saying, you know what, we're thinking that this might be the answer in some of these cases for pulmonary sarcoidosis, and I think that's promising. I'm going to go back to this report just briefly. Studies in lab-grown human cells showed that metformin selectively reduced the survival of cells derived from the lung adenocarcinoma and cervical cancer, while normal lung fibroblasts were only minimally affected, that's what you want. These results suggest, this is a quote, these results suggest that metformin exhibits selective cellular toxicity toward cancer cells while remaining comparatively non-toxic to normal human cells, the researchers wrote. Additionally, metformin was shown to reduce colony formation in lung adenocarcinoma and cervical cancer cells. And then a final quote, these findings support the rationale for drug repurposing and the development of targeted therapies for patients with overlapping disease profiles or those at increased risk of lung cancer progression from sarcoidosis. That's according to the researchers. I did a lot of reading today, and I hope that was consumable, especially when you get into this jargon. I've spent my whole life as a TV news reporter taking any kind of jargon, whether it was police speak, like the car failed to negotiate the curve, means the guy tried to go around the curve and he wiped out, or legal speak where there's all these terms in there, definitions and so forth, or medical speak, or whatever it is, and making that digestible by everyday people who are kind of half-heartedly listening to the news, right? So you want to break it down, but without having the ability to go in and interview the people that did this and to get a better understanding myself, so that I could then paraphrase or break it down even more. I hate to do that. I don't want to make a jump that I'm not entitled to make. So I am reading some stuff to you that may not be super pleasant to the ear. But on the other hand, and I took out a lot of technical detail. If you want to read the whole thing, as always, there's a link in the show notes, and they get right down. They talk about which cells, and they talk about more about the pathways and yada, yada, yada. And believe it or not, I really did give you the homogenized version of that. But if you want to look at that, please do click on the link in the show notes. So that's what I did. I do think that these articles make better reading than they do listening. But I am sparing you the gritty detail. I hope that's the right decision, and I have to draw the line somewhere, and that's where I drew it.
I feel like a zombie, just feeding and stumbling.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying the Sarc Fighter podcast. You may be wondering, what can I do to help? How can I be a part of the sarcoidosis solution? It's simple. Make a donation to KISS, Kick In to Stop Sarcoidosis. 100% of the money goes to the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research. Look for a link in the show notes of the Sarc Fighter podcast. Okay, it's the holiday season, so once again, I want to say happy holidays to you. Merry Christmas for sure. It's coming up here in just a few days. Again, this is December 18th. I hope your time with friends and family is as good as possible. Of course, and a lot of people make fun of all the times they spend with their aunts and uncles and cousins. It can be like that. I get it. And, a lot of people travel from one family to the next family, and, it gets complicated. And this is the time of year when you watch your Christmas movies. So if you get tired of watching your Christmas movies, and my favorite is still Christmas Vacation, you talk about dysfunctional family time. But Christmas Vacation never gets old for me, and Cousin Eddie is absolutely my favorite. But if you get tired of all that, dive into my F1 series, Drive to Survive, on Netflix. There are 7 seasons, 10 episodes per season. So if you're stuck inside over the holidays or sarcoidosis related things, or for instance, my dad now has 2 feet of snow in the driveway in central New York. He's not going anywhere. Stuck inside, go watch F1, and then you can contact me and we can talk about it. Okay, I'm really unamused with that right now, and I apologize. And of course, at this time of year, please do consider making a donation to FSR. I am lining up people to be on the podcast for the first quarter of 2026. Please reach out to me if you'd like to share your story, whether you're a researcher, whether you're a caregiver, whether you have a unique sarcoidosis story to tell, maybe a family member that you're taking care of, or who is having a particularly difficult time. If you've listened to this podcast, we come at it from all different angles, and I really would like for you to reach out to me at carlinagency@gmail.com. All right. The official Sarc Fighter song is Zombie by Mark Steyer and his band, the White Hot Lizards. Mark is a fellow Sarc Fighter. We got an update from Mark in episode 118. As I've discussed ad nauseum today, I normally release every other Monday, though I fear this may be my final podcast of 2025. If I can sneak one more in, I will, but no promises. As I'm speaking today, my trusty dogs Dougal and Shandy are, yes, in my wife's office and not hanging out with me. But when they do, they make my life so much better. Don't forget to follow Sarc Fighter on social media. I'm even on Peloton as Sarc Fighter. I have a cycling blog called Carlin the Cyclist, and I do talk about riding my bike and overcoming everything that sarcoidosis has thrown at me in that arena. And if you're new here and you're just trying to figure out what sarcoidosis is, try listening to episode 2 with Dr. Simon Hart. My story is episode 1. Please send me an email. It's in the show notes, carlinagency@gmail.com. And until next time, happy holidays and keep fighting.
Easier to grieve if I had a breath to breathe. I feel like a zombie, just feeding and stumbling. Learn to suffer, you feel pain someday. Learn endurance, your strength will fade away. Dead man walking, trying to keep up the pace. Dead man walking, counting down his days. And I don't know what will come. Look for silver linings, but still I find none. There was potential, slipping gone. It feels torrential, but find a way to try and adapt your life. It's not the why, but the how that plagues my mind. A new perspective, appreciate what you've got. We're dead men walking, in an instant it could be gone. And I don't know what will come. Look for silver linings, but still I find none. There was potential, slipping gone. Wherever there is happiness, fight to be there too. And wherever there are friendly smiles, try hard to smile too. And wherever there is sunshine, don't let fear darken you. And whatever happens,